Welcome to the At the Coalface podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. This podcast is all about what it's really like in the trenches of digital and e-commerce. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the pod. We've got an amazing guest with us today. We have Beck Besseker, who is the founder and CEO of Marxent 3D Cloud. Welcome, Beck.
Hey, thank you for your time, Jason.
Brilliant to have you here. And if we look back across your history, this is not your first foray into the tech space. We'll talk about 3D Cloud in a minute, but you have a long history of being a bit of a serial entrepreneur in the tech space, going all the way back to 99 when you were founder and CEO of Copient Technologies, which was ultimately acquired by NCR. You were then Chief Development Officer of Catalina Marketing, founder and CEO of Magnetic Mobile, which you're still the chairman of that business. And now since 2011, you founded Marxent in 2011. So you've got this background of both entrepreneurship, but also deep tech and really retail tech. But this is really, your technology is B2B retail tech that ultimately those businesses then extend your solution out to the consumer.
That's correct. Yep.
And what drew you into tech, I guess, originally? What was the big draw when you first started Copient Technologies, which was that it was a retail marketing platform and really designed to integrate with point of sale systems, which makes sense why it was acquired by NCR. And I think it's now known as NCR Advanced Marketing. And so what drew you into tech? What drew you into entrepreneurship right from the start?
Both are my brothers, my chief technology officer. So when I say we, my brother Barry and I have pretty much been in business our whole lives together. But I was in graduate school in 1995 through 1999. And that was about the same time that everybody was talking about .com and the web. And I'd actually really thought I was going to be a researcher and college professor. And that was a lot of what I was studying. And then got into a project around involving big data and databases and complex data models and search methodologies. And then by happenstance ran into a guy that had some retail background. And we started to think, boy, a lot of the stuff that's happening around big data could apply to online retail. And it eventually ended up in this company, Copient, which the easiest way to think about Copient is if you ever scan a loyalty card at a checkout and get a really long receipt, we're the guys that help build that industry. We were looking at using past and current purchase behavior and delivering targeted offers at the checkout. And eventually that went into email and text messaging and so forth. And then NCR eventually bought the company. And so it was really content management, targeted marketing. And so we've always, that became the beginning of our sort of domain expertise. And then every business since then has been marrying marketing technology and consumer engagement strategy.
Which takes us to where we are today with 3D Cloud and your platform, as I understand it. And I've seen other similar products, maybe not exactly like your platform, but I have some exposure to 3D platforms. But your platform is really a suite. It's a product suite that retailers would typically, I guess your target market would typically be retailers, but it's comprised of different modules, but it's a full suite. It's fully hosted. It's SaaS. It's a SaaS platform, and it includes the 3D Cloud component, which has the CMS components, data analytics. 3D applications can be built on the platform. 3D catalogs with business rules and assemblies. So in other words, you can deal with all the various variants of a product. So let's say it's furniture or something like that. You can deal with the different configurations with the chaise lounges and the sectionals and all the rest. Then you've got your room visualizer component so that someone could, for example, see that piece of furniture in their actual room so that they can actually see and visualize the space that it would take up, et cetera, colors and the like. You've got your WebAR and augmented reality for furniture. You've got the room planners. So effectively someone could build out a room with a drag, I'm guessing and assuming it's a bit of a drag and drop experience within a room space. And then you've got 3D product configurators, sectional configurators and the like. So it's really an entire suite of tools that's targeted at building 3D versions or 3D models of these various different products so that they can then be visualized in a space.
Yeah, that's pretty well said. From one side of the business, you think of us as a 3D content management system. Like Salesforce went to market with a strategy of, hey, I've got one view of the customer, but I'm going to have all these different interaction points where I have to build that view of the customer. We're doing the same thing for 3D. Well, it's okay. I've got this one chair, or I've got this sofa, or I've got a table, but odds are a 3D twin of that product could end up in a lot of different applications. Like you mentioned, the product configurator, a room planner, visualizer, what have you. And so our value proposition to our retail partner, like an Ashley Furniture, a Macy's, or a Bob's, is, hey, if you're going to create these interactive experiences with consumers, think of it as more of a platform rather than an application, because the odds are that the applications will grow and change over time. What you really care about is making sure that the content is set up in a way that is easily accessed by lots of different use cases. So it can be shared between trade partners and between applications and so forth. And yeah, so most of our clients think of us as like a 3D content management system. And of course, we focus on the home vertical. And then if you flip it over and you look at the consumer side, what's really happened in the last 3, 4, 5 years is that like these 3D tools were really largely designated for a use for like pro, like a architect or like a designer, and you had to download a piece of software, and you probably needed to have a really big graphics card to create a 3D virtual experience. And so what's really changed on the consumer side is browsers can now support these experiences. And so I look at it like once people could use Expedia to book an airline ticket, it's the same thing. Like these technologies are getting webified. And so every average homeowner can get access to these tools and do a lot of this work themselves and not have to depend upon a store associate or a designer to do it. And so we're democratizing 3D for everybody to get access to it.
Love it. And we've had Spiff 3D on the podcast before, the guys over at Spiff 3D, and they specialize in 3D for smaller products, not furniture or very large products, but their entire focus is personalization. So being able to put your name on something or customize the product, whatever the case may be. And you guys take a slightly different tack. And obviously the big difference between you guys and what they focus on is the sheer size and scale of the products that you're typically working with. When you get to furniture scale, these are large products, right? This is not like a football that you're trying to personalize. These are very large products that have a dramatic impact on physical space within the home or the kitchen or the bathroom or wherever it might be. And so for you guys, from a foundational tech perspective, what does the merchant have to do to get their products into your system? Is it a process of taking 10 different photos of each individual thing, and then you can drape it with whatever different fabric or whatever, as long as you've got that 3D framework of that given product and the dimensions of the product, then I'm guessing that you can almost overlay any type of fabric or surface or whatever on it that you like?
Yeah, they really fall into kind of two categories. One would be like a organic shape. So this is like a table or chair or sofa. Those you have to actually sculpt the geometry of the object. And you hit it right on the head. A big part of what we do, if you've got a brown leather that can be applied to 700 different products, there's no reason to create multiple versions of that asset. You would repurpose it as much as you possibly can for efficiency. And so that is a part of what we do. We have this nice like 3D workflow tool where we collaborate with retailers, where they give us reference material or a link to a URL or imagery that we need to create a fabric or a finish or a material. So that's one part of the business. Another part of the business is objects that are more geometric. So think like kitchen cabinets. Those can be done using data. So you don't actually have to pre-build all those 3D models. You can just generate them on the fly. It's called parametric modeling, where you get a depth, a width, a height, and a finish, and you can put it all together like Legos in real time. So it's a combination of techniques. There's no just one way to get it done. It largely depends upon the catalog.
Now, if someone's got a large array of different sofas, they've got 100 different designs. Sounds to me like it could take them a bit of time, and I guess there needs to be someone in the business that has some sort of capability around design capability, creative capability, that would then work within your tool set to get those 100 different sofa designs and sectionals, et cetera, and all the different components into your platform. So I'm guessing that's what consumes the vast majority of the time. Actually onboarding those products into your platform is the initial creation of the base set of products.
No, you're right. Like setting up the applications is pretty straightforward now. You set up a new instance and you brand it and choose which configurations you want, which integrations you want. But yeah, creating the catalog is the lion's share of the work, and also all the business rules. And so it's, what are the reference materials? What are your priorities? One of the reasons we have such a broad suite of applications is that we're trying to provide what I would call like entry-level 3D products. Projects or applications where maybe you only require, call it 500 or 1,000 products to make it a good user experience. And then you get into something like a planner tool where you need several thousand products to make it a good user experience. But yeah, that could be a big part of the time and energy investment is building out the catalogs. And so we do a lot of work with our clients around being very prescriptive based on what we've seen work or not work, and say, here's really a good suite of products that you're going to need day one, and then build out like an annual plan to continue to increment the catalog. But yeah, that's definitely, unfortunately, there is startup cost in creating these catalogs, which means the technology's largely been relegated to bigger companies that can make these kind of investments. But we hope with over time and scale that, and new efficiencies and new technologies, that smaller businesses will be able to take advantage of the tech as well.
And would you ever be in a situation where you would supply this kind of almost like digital architect to the brand and say, hey, look, they're going to come on site, they're going to sit with you for 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 weeks to get this initial catalog input into the system for you on your behalf. You're going to guide them and give them direction and give them access to catalog assets that they may need, but we're going to come on site and we're going to white glove you into the system. Is that something that you guys have considered as a pathway to getting someone onboarded into your system faster? Because obviously you guys have the expertise, but I guess then again, your position might be, actually, we don't want to do that because we need to at some point hand the keys to the kingdom over to the retailer so that they can continue to extend and maintain the platform themselves.
Today, it's what we do is we expose parts of our platform to our partners, things like QA tools or approval tools or the ability to activate or deactivate products. And so we try to do most of the heavy lifting for our clients, like a managed service, but give them access to the tools they need if they need in real time or a 24-hour turnaround. So that's typically the way we work. But the good news is that in terms of onboarding content, there was a time when we were having lots of products like shipped to our office to do scanning. But over time, we've built a set of tools and techniques where we're able to largely do it remote at this point.
That's brilliant. And you guys have some local clients down in ANZ, don't you?
Yes, we work a Fletcher Building Group, which owns Placemakers and Myco.
Yep.
Are clients of ours for the last a little bit over a year now. And we work with them on both kitchen and bath plan.
Which is notoriously complex. And my wife, her brother has been in the kitchen design space for a number of years, and it can get notoriously complex pretty quick with kitchens because there's so many variations to fittings, to counters and materials and colors, and it's a pretty complex space, isn't it?
So it's interesting you bring that up. So we've done a lot of sort of analysis and testing in here, and it turns out that actually building the space or designing the space is something that most people can do if they have a tool that's like fast and easy to use. What we learned is that the real challenge is knowledge of the catalog. And so if you go look at a typical like kitchen or bath catalog, it could be a couple 3 inches thick. And if you've never done a kitchen before, like how are you going to navigate that catalog in any kind of real functional way? And so the problem is not the design, the problem is in catalog knowledge. And so then we started saying, okay, how do we overcome that? And so we came up with this feature we call Design from Photo. And what we'll do is take these inspirational photos of a kitchen, and actually we'll build the photos out of our platform. And then we tag the products in that photo to the products in the catalog. So instead of having to like hunt and peck through the catalog, you can just grab an item from the photo and place it in your 3D space, and then just keep doing that. And so you can take a design you like in a photo and then emulate it in your space, and you don't have to know anything about the products themselves other than that you like them. So it was a sort of a crude analog. If you can't draw, you can trace. And so that's been pretty successful. It's a lot easier for users. It's a lot less intimidating. You bridge inspiration with design at the same time, which is pretty cool. And then the next version of that we call magic rooms, where we've been applying sort of business rules and AI to that. And so now you can build your floor plan, tap a photo, and it'll automatically lay out your space. And then you can swipe through or click through all the different allowable permutations. So you could say, okay, show me all the L kitchens, tap and it just rebuilds them. Or let me show a galley kitchen or a G kitchen, and you can just continue to tap through all the possible options. And then once you find one that's like close to what you like, you can then go in and edit and change finishes and make changes. And so this new sort of automated design technique or technology is pretty exciting. We think it'll really make this much more accessible to the average homeowner.
Sounds like you've taken a page out of the fashion notebook where we've got lookbooks, right? When you go to a fashion website, there's often these lookbooks. Hey, get this look, get this look, get this look. And then you can chop and change and swap out components of the look, but they give you this kind of base look for the season or for the reason, and then you edit from there.
You got it. Exactly. Actually, it's funny I use that analogy. Like if you were buying a cocktail dress, you wouldn't do a style quiz. You would just go look at pictures until you found the one you liked. And so we definitely took a page out of the fashion industry. It's okay, if I love this design, just make it fit me. And that's exactly what we did. It's a great observation.
Very wise on you guys' part to use that cross-industry knowledge and capability to create a system that's really fast and really user-friendly for both designers as well as end customers. Now, your platform, it integrates. What are the integrations that you got out of the box with some of the more out of the box e-commerce platforms like your Shopify's, your BigCommerce's, your Magentas, whatever it might be? What e-commerce platforms do you integrate with today? And what level of integration do you have there in the sense of, is this exposed typically on the product page? Is it typically exposed on a dedicated design page? Is it typically a dedicated mobile app, particularly for the visualization component? How do you integrate with your typical e-commerce software?
Yeah, so the standard integrations are like a single sign-on, CRM system for leads, a cart, online cart is pretty standard, PIM, so pricing, availability, regionality, and then the in-store checkout in some cases as well. What's nice is that most of our clients you don't have to do, sometimes getting the resources if you're a major retailer manufacturer to do a complete suite of integrations can be time consuming or costly. So we typically try to work out a phased approach. If your goals initially are lead generation into a central design team, we could do your CRM system and then add the online checkout or in-store carts later. But yeah, we try to make them all very AI driven and easy to integrate. Obviously, we don't want to replicate being your PIN or pricing or anything like that. But we work with all the major e-com guys like the Magentas and Shopify's of the world.
And so would you see or expect that your customers would typically migrate off of those platforms onto your CMS and cart system, or would they just for that component, they would be in your system?
Yeah, we try to stick to our knitting. We are the 3D content management system. So if we don't want to be your pricing system. We don't want to be your CRM. We don't want to be your cart. So we just integrate with what they have or what they intend to have.
And so what would an integration like that typically look like for something like a Shopify or a BigCommerce? What areas of the experience would you take over, and what form would that take? Would it be starting on the PDP, the product detail page, or would it be a dedicated area?
It would. So like if it's like a product configurator or like an augmented reality application, like you don't even realize we're there. That's a pretty lift. Even most of our clients control their own configuration options. All they're doing is using an API to call so think like an office chair. And so somebody will configure the office chair and in real time, it's calling the arms and the legs and the seat and the back and the colors and the shapes and the materials and bringing them together real time in front of the user. So in that case, it's just an API to the 3D cloud and on the PDP. And then in other cases, like a planner, where it's like a full desktop experience, will operate as like a subdomain to the retailer site. But those are we could do an iframe too, not always ideal, but if necessary, we can do that as well.
Great. So you do have the flexibility to integrate with various different CMSs, various different e-com platforms.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, whatever needs to be integrated with, you guys are all the way from almost like a headless type of integration all the way through to a deeply embedded integration and everything in between.
Yeah, if it's the planner is really the tool where we can take over the whole UX and the consumer directly. All the other tools are more like PDP or landing page type tools.
And I'm guessing that with the push towards the metaverse, and sure, there's debate about how soon or if or when this is all going to become mainstream for consumers, but it would seem that you guys would be perfectly positioned to move all of your experiences directly into a full 3D metaverse environment, because you've already built out all the products in 3D. You've already built out the experiences in 3D, and the VR metaverse would be in full 3D anyway. And so therefore, whether it's floating in a three-dimensional space or 3D display on a 2D display, as it is today, you're creating effectively a 3D experience within a 2D display. You guys would be able to make that transition pretty quickly and pretty seamlessly, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's funny. We started this company in 2011, and we actually wrote the very first augmented reality app for the Apple App Store in November of 11. And then it didn't have a name at the time. People weren't calling it augmented reality. And then we were also I think we were the very first retail implementation of virtual reality in the world with a project called the Hollow Room at Lowe's. It was a 3D kitchen design VR experience. And it's interesting, if you'd have told me in 2013 that it would have taken another 7 years for VR to reach any kind of critical mass, I would have never believed you. It was so exciting, and Oculus Rift was out, and it was all the buzz at CES. And so I've lived through that little bit of that hype cycle of where these things can go. And I feel a little bit like that about the metaverse. It's not super well defined, and people are still trying to understand how they play and what's the value proposition, what's the user experience. And so I think I think there's some there, but I think it's probably 5 years before we really understand what the metaverse really means. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about it, if you want to hear about my thought about what the metaverse will be.
Absolutely. Would love that. Would love your thinking about how you think the metaverse is going to evolve, but more importantly, how you guys may have to adapt your technology and your platforms to work in that space seamlessly for merchants. Because my sense is that from an e-commerce perspective, until the Shopify of the metaverse comes out, it's going to be very hard for most retailers to build out a metaverse driven experience, because it's all so custom, it's all so bespoke. And as you say, there's no standard. And the biggest issue I have with VR now is that there's no standards, and that everybody's got their own mini standard. And so it's almost like until we get the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript of the metaverse, and that becomes a standard across every single experience that we build out in that space, and until we get that level of commonality and standardization, it's almost like the old VHS versus beta argument, right? Until you get standardization, you can't get mass adoption.
I'd agree with you there. I think that the volume and sort of interest level or engagement level of content will require a lot of users beyond what individual retailers or manufacturers can do themselves. And I think the most interesting part of the metaverse will be the kind of the rules and the system by which you traverse from one place to the next. Do you remember link share way back in the day in 1999?
Yes.
I think it'll be something like that, where it's agreements between different places that allow you to traverse between them that share a common architecture. And it's that sort of linking and kind of a portal experience that once that's built, then I think you'll start to see these kind of communities. If you want to take a page from kind of the traditional physical mall, they'll start to create their own weight, and then more people are going to want to connect to it. But I think that has to be figured out for this to work, because just to go to a landing page, I love what Nike is doing. I love what some of the other brands are doing as well. But to go into a space that's like fully owned and branded by one particular retailer brand and navigate around their curated experience, I just don't see the engagement value that will need to be there for a Roblox, right? Or the Minecraft effect that people feel when they're in those kind of spaces. Yeah, I don't think a branded experience alone will do it. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is like how does the navigation between one experience to the other work, and who owns that, and is it open source, or what does that look like?
Yeah, there's two pieces to what you just said that I think stand out to me and align really closely with some of the things I've been thinking about the metaverse. So I see the metaverse ultimately taking shape similar to a browser today. So we've got at the moment, literally while we're speaking here, I've got 6 tabs open in my browser, right? Now these are 6 completely separate experiences, but they're all tabs within a single browser. And I see a standard, almost like a waiting room environment in the metaverse, where you're standing there virtually in this space. And then you've got blocks effectively of different metaverse experiences that you can just virtually tap on. And then all of a sudden you get whisked into that particular experience, and you can exit back out of that experience back into the lobby at any time. And those become almost like your tabs. They become your tabbed metaverse experiences. And one of those experiences might be a Facebook metaverse experience. One might be an Amazon experience, and one might be a metaverse experience that's built by a retailer, right? Similar to how we have tabs in our browser today that can go into all those different experiences, all from the one browser.
I'd agree with that. And I think that we really haven't, I don't know if we really seen anybody come to market with kind of this idea of creating the community as opposed to creating proprietary experiences. I don't think so.
Yeah. And look, somebody's going to have to do it. And then there's going to need to be a Shopify and a BigCommerce of the metaverse. We're going to need these turnkey solutions that allow retailers to create their own metaverse experiences out of building blocks that are really quick and can be, at least for the first generation, can be highly templated. But my biggest issue with the metaverse today, like you, is the fact that even if I try out a Nike metaverse experience, what most of these brands are doing as of right now is effectively just recreating an existing physical showroom. They're creating virtual carbon copies with some tiny little tweaks around the edges of an existing physical experience in a physical store. And to me, that completely misses the entire point of the metaverse or VR, because the reality is if you're playing a 3D VR video game, for example, nowadays, the experience that you have is so visceral and it's so wild and out there that I think if you were to transition from a VR video game into a VR shopping experience, you would be severely disappointed. And even to the point where a VR travel experience or a VR space exploration experience or anything like that even isn't a game, but is just a travel experience in VR, that is going to absolutely blow away the basic, what I consider to be very basic VR experiences that retailers are putting together today. And they haven't really realized that all the boundaries go away when you're building a fully virtual experience. We don't need to create them like a standard retail store. We can create radically engaging experience.
Well, I mean, I agree. These kind of experiences are rarely ever innovated by the incumbents, obviously. And I was joking the other day that, like, if I wanted to buy a car in the metaverse, I don't want to do it at a virtual parking lot.
Yeah.
It's the same. But I think that's just a starting point, the most intuitive place to start. And it's a mental framework that we can all understand. But I'm sure it'll move very quickly past the virtual showroom.
And do you think that the recent market downturn and what is increasingly looking like a global recession, either we're in one or we're very soon to be in one, do you think that, and particularly some devolution of the crypto space and the destruction of Terra and Luna and the $40 billion of investor funds that got wiped out in the process, do you think that this is going to have a chilling effect on the metaverse and Web3 more broadly, and particularly commerce in the metaverse? Do you think that's going to have a bit of a chilling effect and is going to put up some roadblocks? Or do you think it's going to be more like the .com boom and bust, where some of the biggest internet companies in the world came out of the ashes like Phoenix? They rose out of the ashes like phoenixes out of the .com bust. And realistically, all of the largest players today on the internet came out of that destruction. And so we thought it was the end of the internet at that time. I remember what it felt like, and I remember what I was doing when I first started hearing it on the radio and all the things as it cascaded down through the real economy. And it felt like the world was coming to an end for a real short period, but it didn't. And we picked up where we were left off, and the strongest were left standing, and that's where all the investment went in the end. And it feels very much like this could be a similar situation.
Yeah, I've been looking for a contrarian all week, Jason. That was fantastically said. It's funny, I had an advisor group meeting this morning, and all of these are very accomplished 30 plus year business people. And I said, let's go around the room. What's everybody's outlook, and what evidence have you seen, and what do you expect to happen, and how long do you expect it to last? And yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot of like silver lining amongst the group, but I think that's how we all prepare for the worst kind of mentality. But I agree with you. Yeah, you have to operate a business responsibly and think about growing it responsibly. But I went through that .com stuff too. And I feel like if you can take a little bit of a contrarian view and views it an opportunity and make smart investments, and this also gives you a time to catch your business up and do what you need to do internally to invest to support while the growth may not be there for the next year and a half. When you come out of it, you're in a better position because you've got new tooling, you've got new efficiencies, you've got new scale, you've got a better organization. I think you have to look at it as an opportunity to accelerate and go. Yeah, I'm doing my best to do that.
I love it. I love that sort of positive view. None of us, I think, can predict exactly what's going to happen over the next 6 to say 24 months. And I think anybody that says that they have the answers is frankly delusional. But I think we have patterns, right? We have patterns that we can see historically. We look at the pattern that emerged during the GFC. We look at the pattern of .com. We look at all of the mini retrenchments that happened in between those times as well. And I think what we see is a similar pattern emerging, which is that the downs are priced in so fast and so early and so efficiently by the market. The market takes almost a scorched earth approach to this, right? Where it just wipes everything out and it just takes it down so quickly that the whiplash effect when it comes back out of it can be almost as severe.
No, I'd agree with you. And actually, even it wasn't that long, a little less or over the 2 years ago, when I remember in March or April of 2020, I'd lived through 9/11 running a business. And I remember coming out of that thinking like, I was like 20 something at the time. And I didn't anticipate the impact on the economy it would have nearly enough, or I didn't move quick. And it created a real risk, but we chipped our way out of it and kept going. Wherein with COVID, everybody around me and all the people I respected that were talking about how we should plan for COVID, all retrenched. And we did some of that as well. And then it turns out one of the best markets for COVID in the history of the universe was, the home industry, people working on their homes and renovating, and you couldn't buy furniture. It was so scarce because people were really investing in their home. And so I don't think I knew one person who came to me in April of 2020 and said, hey, the home vertical is going to be completely counter-cyclical to the rest of what happens and go like crazy. Nobody gave me that advice. It was all hold on for dear life and prepare for the worst. And it turned out to be an amazing opportunity for the company, and really, honestly, accelerated by years what people were willing to do online and build a deck or a kitchen or new bathroom. And they were all doing it through our tools. And yeah, you just can't take a carte blanche, view of how an upside or a downside will affect your business. You really have to look at the data and think and make your own decisions.
Yeah, and you make your own future to a degree. Now, for you guys, how do you guys make your money? You're a SaaS platform. You're a fully hosted platform. You provide all this technology. It's turnkey, out of the box, wholesale, end to end, and they can take it on module by module. How do you guys charge? How do you guys make your money as a business?
Yeah, so we charge a monthly fee for what we call the 3D cloud. Think of it as like the engine of the car, if you will. And that varies by the size of the organization we'd be working with. And then we also charge a monthly fee for each application. So kind of like stacking bricks. Let me start with the cloud, and then I want to do augmented reality, and I also want to do a planner. Maybe later I want to do a sectional configurator or a product configurator. And so they just add those applications to the monthly fee as they add. And so our strategy is to grow an account and grow a relationship and a partnership by serving more and more use cases within their company. But very straightforward, simple model, very similar to most of the traditional B2B SaaS companies. We do have a few premium services that are more unit priced or session based, but those are the exception.
And is it typically based largely on the size of the catalog that's going to be put into your platform? Is that kind of what is the base determinant of kind of the size of the client?
No, it's really the revenue you could have a small catalog, but it could be doing several billion a year. And so we really do it based on revenue per company and category.
Makes perfect sense. Look, it has been super, super amazing speaking with you. And I love the concept of your technology. I love the fact that you're thinking ahead, but got one foot in the present and dealing with the current environment, but also thinking ahead to, hey, how can we stay relevant to our customers in any kind of environment, whether that's a metaverse, VR, AR, it doesn't really matter. You guys are really adapting to the change on the fly as the industry changes, as you have right from the beginning. And that's super inspirational, because I think many businesses are going to have to do the same. I think they're going to have to really take a seriously hard look at where they fit, both in the current world and in the future world over the next 5 to 10 years. And they're really going to have to forge a strong position in it. Now, we've come to the segment of the pod where I turn the microphone over to you and I give you a chance to ask me one question, any question you like. I do my best to answer it as openly and honestly as I can, but it flips the script on me as the host. And I'd like to turn the microphone over to you and let you ask me one question, anything you like. And so, Beck Besseker from 3D Cloud, what question do you have for me?
Yeah, you're obviously pretty steeped in the space, and you get to talk to a lot of business owners and founders. And I think what's your expectation around the investment community in the next 12 to 18 months? What are you hearing from those guys around how they're thinking about pushing through the next couple of years of uncertainty?
Very good question. And I'm already hearing murmurings, and I'm already seeing the chilling effect on the VC community in particular. But I actually think this was something that was a long time coming. We saw during COVID that money was being thrown at anything with the word e-commerce attached to it at a great rate of knots. And VCs were largely stopped doing proper diligence of any kind. And I think that was borne out by the irrational exuberance of investments in platforms like Fast that have gone Belly Up and other technologies that are shaky to
They
begin
were a
with.
St. P company.
Yeah, and we see BNPL, buy now, pay later, now on the ropes, and we see that none of these businesses are likely to ever make money anytime soon. And there's been billions and billions of dollars thrown at that industry wholesale over the last couple of years, over the last 5 in particular. And we've seen this right across everything to do with fintech, everything to do with Web3, everything to do with e-com. We just saw such capital was so cheap and so plentiful that it was almost like valuations went up in the same rate of knots that if you go to buy a cake and you tack the word wedding on in front of it, that the cake is going to cost you 3 times as much. It felt like e-commerce became the word wedding for our industry and for investors. And valuations were just totally so far away from any form of reality that the money, any kind of investor that wanted to do proper due diligence during this time was going to miss out on deal flow, just because there was so many people willing to throw money at things that didn't really have any clear route to profitability. And I think now what we're seeing is that the taps have been turned off literally almost overnight. Now, early venture, like we're talking seed, pre-seed, really early venture, I think that's going to be the least affected, or at least from what I'm seeing, because those are typically ultra high risk investments anyway, and they have such a small rate of success. There's so few unicorns that come out of that super early venture investing that I think the funds will always be there for that super early space. But again, due diligence is going up, times to close deal, time to close funding is stretching out. And then more late venture, so your B's, your C's, your D rounds before going IPO. And then of course the IPO, I think IPOs will largely go on hold for the next couple of years. I don't think we're going to see any big IPOs in the next couple of years, because it's just not an environment to get a decent valuation, and valuations have been cut in half for most businesses. And so you look at Klarna even saying last week that they were going to go back to market and expecting a significant down round in their latest raise. And so my thinking at this stage, based on what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, is that late stage venture is going to get really difficult. Early stage venture will be less affected, but due diligence will go through the roof. And you're really going to have to show a pretty clear path to product market fit and profitability to secure funding. And it's going to cost you more. And you're going to have probably more dilution on the cap table in the process as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. When we raised our first round way back in 1999, our first company, we did it with a private placement, a lot of individual investors. It was the .com and everybody was speculating. I made a rule that I try to only take money from operators, folks that have formerly run a business. And just as obviously there's a lot of great venture and growth financing folks out there, but like that looking at these things in 2 or 3 year windows are just not very helpful, and that being whipsawed back and forth between it's a great idea to now it's not a great idea. Just is a really rough way to not only run a business, but lead a team. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I'd have to agree that it's probably a bit of a tempering for the next, 12 to 24 months.
And I think we're going to get back to a place where, most businesses, they hear about all these venture funds going out, but the vast majority, we're talking, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I'm guessing it's greater than 90% of all the really great businesses out there, and particularly ones that don't necessarily get massive, but they're really strong businesses doing strong revenue, strong profitability, stay indefinitely. But the vast majority of those, they've never taken in venture funding. They maybe have had some friends and family funding, but typically they're bootstrapped, and then they pay back their friends and their family, and they're self-sufficient and profitable from very early on. And even for small business loans, you have to have collateral. And so for many business owners, that's the family home. And they put that up as collateral to get the business loan from a bank in the first place, because the bank requires really strong collateral. And so I think what we're going to see is more of a return over the next 6 to say 24 months. We're going to see a return to that model of building a business where the expectation of profitability almost from day one is there. And the expectation that you're going to be exceptionally judicious with your runway. You're going to be exceptionally judicious with your hiring. You're going to be exceptionally judicious with product market fit. All those things, I think, are really good things. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think we've gotten so far away from business fundamentals over the last 5 years that it beggars belief, to be honest.
No, I'll be 52 this year. I think this is my 4th time going through this cycle in a relatively short time period between 99 and now. It's just history repeats itself. So here we are again.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm 47. I'll be 48 this year. So I think we're of a similar vintage. And yeah, you see the patterns repeat over and over again. And it's just, we seem to never learn. And the central banks seem to never take the punch bowl away soon enough. We don't understand history. We're doomed to repeat it, I think the saying goes. And I think that's just what we're finding right now. And we're just unwinding a heck of a lot of debt in the system. But it's going to be exciting on the other side of this. And I think for businesses like yours, and hopefully like mine, I think we're going to end up in a much stronger place because I don't think our industries are going away. I don't think your industry is going away anytime.
That's
Your industry is going to grow.
One of our big investors, Dan Gilbert, who owns Quicken Loans, the largest mortgage company in the U.S. or near that. He told me one time it's death, taxes, and homes. Those three industries will never go away. And I've always thought, okay, that made a lot of sense to me, that if our company is wrapped around the home industry, that we're going to be here for a long time to come, and ups and downs, but it's a pretty secure place to be.
Absolutely. Listen, Beck, it has been amazing chatting with you. If somebody wants to find out more or contact you, are they best to just simply go to Marxent Labs, MARXENTLABS.com? Is that the best place to go to find out more?
It is. I'll make it easier. 3dcloud.com goes to the same place.
Oh, great. 3dcloud.com. So easy. And if they want to reach out to you directly for a chat of any kind, should they reach out to you on LinkedIn, or where's the best place to
yeah, just my email is Beck, BECK at Marxent, MARXENT.com.
Man, making it super, super easy. Listen, it's been a fantastic speaking with you. Congratulations on all your success so far and your growth. And I've super enjoyed it. It's awesome that you're serving some clients already down here in ANZ. And I'm sure that's going to grow over the next couple of years. And I'd love to get you back on in another 6, maybe 12, 18 months and see how the business has grown, see how you're faring through the downturn, and see what you guys are turning up in terms of the gold mine that I think is your industry.
Great. It's been our pleasure. Thank you, Jason.
Are you a merchant or software vendor that is focused on e-commerce or omnichannel? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to see how we can help you scale your business.